Hello and welcome to the second episode in this Aurora season. I've come down to the beach because I thought it would be kind of chilled and I could hang out under a palm tree, which I kind of can, but it's June now, there are more and more people on the beach, and today it's like, I'm going to talk about the sea actually, and what the sea is like today here, but just right now it's like a lake. We live like in this little bay, and there's often, like, sometimes there are waves, but there is often this like incredibly flat lake-like expanse of water. It would be so perfect to be going and getting my paddleboard right now, and I might do that in a bit, but for now I'm going to talk a little bit about my paddleboard. Today's topic is about the role of resistance. Gosh, and I'm noticing, normally when I'm recording these, I'm kind of like away from people, just in nature or on the move. So this is interesting, noticing it's a little bit uncomfortable, just sort of like walking a little bit around and sitting where there are some people just chilling out, sitting by the sea. Anyway, I found myself a little kind of nook between two palm trees in the shade, so I think this will do for now. But I want to talk about the role of resistance, and this came up for numerous reasons, but what happened this morning was I went to get my paddleboard and I took it out to the sea, and as I was walking early this morning I saw this like lake-like expanse of water, which is what I'm seeing right now, and I thought, when I come back from having this call, I had a call with one of the Aurora case study participants this morning, and I wanted to do it out in nature, so I was out doing that. And when I was coming back, I was looking and thinking, like this is perfect paddleboard weather. And I came home, and by the time I got my paddleboard and went out to the shore, the wind had picked up like quite significantly, and it's not at all windy now. The wind has completely dropped, and I thought, okay, well, it's still like, and there was the kind of like what seemed like quite a strong current going along or with the wind. So it had all sort of changed a little bit. It wasn't like choppy, crazy, wavy or anything. Still okay paddleboard conditions, but something had started to shift. So anyway, I got on the paddleboard and I paddled out, and I did the thing that I love to do, which is lie down and chill out, just be there out, surrounded by the water, in the peace of the peace and tranquility of the water. In all transparency, there were some jet skiers not that far away from me, so I didn't even I guess experience like the peace and tranquility that I had hoped for this morning, but it was still very enjoyable. Anyway, by the time I had kind of got up from lying down and started paddling again, I was really quite far over the other side of the bay, because I'd been kind of swept over that way by the current and by the wind. And then I thought, right, well, now I'll head back. And it was really quite tricky to turn the paddleboard around. It was like I started trying to go one way and I wasn't turning, and then I tried to go the other way and I wasn't turning, and I did start to panic and I thought, oh, am I even going to be able to turn around? I mean, the worst comes to the worst, I could have just come into the shore and walked the distance of the bay back to where I started. But anyway, then I started to increase the speed with which I was putting the paddle in to do the turn, and then I managed to make the turn. And I was really putting in a lot of like strength and effort and determination in order to turn, and then in order to kind of go back against the wind. And a few minutes into this exercise, I started to reflect a little bit, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, if this isn't like paddling upstream, then what is? Like, what am I doing? Why am I like going so into this and like making it so hard? And what came to me then was, okay, what do I normally do when I meet with resistance? Because this is just like, I'm just surrounded by resistance, and what I'm doing is kind of like pushing back against the resistance, which in my normal day-to-day life is what I try not to do. So how do I approach resistance in my day-to-day life? Well, I meet it with kind of open arms, if I can, and I kind of do two things, and this is starting to introduce a little bit the Aurora concept of processing sensation in the body using both the left and right hemispheres of the brain. So for me, the left hemisphere of the brain is to do with like attention to detail and really zooming in and meeting something with closeness and attention and intimacy, and that thing just being like in that moment the whole world. And then the right hemisphere of the brain I see as being like more the zoomed out state of being, where that resistance or whatever it is there, but it's in the context of the much bigger picture. And the Aurora concept is about really learning to dance between those two ways of approaching whatever it is that we're approaching. And in this situation, it was resistance. So I started to interact with the resistance that I could see all around me when I was on the paddleboard in this way. And for me, this is done kind of through breath, but it's through an awareness with the breath that allows me to kind of engage in this dance. And then what started to happen was my whole body started to relax. And I kid you not, I could see right in front of me this very like lake light, like almost like, well, like there is now, like the water is now, kind of pathway, like it was like right in front of me, like either side there was this kind of choppiness and like going against I would have to go against the current and the wind, and then there was this very smooth lake-like kind of path, and I just kind of chuckled to myself and thought, of course, there it is. there is the path of least resistance. Now, the path of least resistance is a very interesting concept to talk about. In the past, I think I have contemplated the path of least resistance as being something which, it's kind of almost encouraging avoiding resistance, which this obviously is not. That's not what I'm talking about here. That's not what I did this morning. But there's a difference between pushing back against the resistance in a kind of forceful way and meeting the resistance and engaging with it in this kind of like left-right brain hemisphere dance that I'm currently exploring more deeply and enjoying immensely. And so this path of least resistance, this opening came through my kind of intimacy with the resistance and taking that connection into the bigger, wider context of the cosmic whole, if you like. And it was, as I say, I just kind of chuckled. And then the rest of the journey home was very, much more relaxed and smooth. And then I noticed that I started to think about something else. My mind started to wander, and the smooth path became kind of less clear, and I started to go into like the choppiness again. So the resistance really required my presence. It really required my connection. And this is not unlike when I'm engaging and interacting and supporting my children. So for example, this morning Jack, my son, was feeling sad, and I was in the shower, and he came into the bathroom and he said, "Mum, I'm feeling so sad." And if I had either tried to avoid his sadness in the way that I have previously been taught to kind of avoid resistance and not engage with it, but find another way, then he would have been very upset. Or if I had gone straight to like a kind of big picture, it's all going to be okay approach, he would have also been pretty sad, because he wants me to connect with where he is and not to jump to the kind of bigger perspective. The wind is starting to pick up a little bit now. It's very interesting. I hope that the sound is still okay on this. So this is about engaging with resistance as if it was a young child who needs to be seen and to be held and to be accepted just as they are. And people often have, and I have had in the past, like some kind of reluctance to engaging with quotes like negative energy. Engaging with fear, engaging with anger, with resistance, with shame, with whatever it may be. Because the teaching is that if you engage with it, you perpetuate it, and you actually expand the space that it takes up in your experience. What I have found is that in the left brain like interaction with the energy, the closeness and the acknowledgement, and really like being with it and connecting with it and seeing it and welcoming it home, like into my cells and into my body. That is just like meeting a child and fully accepting them where they are. And that vibration, one of acceptance, full and complete acceptance, is for me is one of the highest vibrations that there is. So it doesn't worry me at all that by engaging with this energy in this way that I might be somehow manifesting more of the same. In contrast, what I see is happening is I'm approaching it from a place of unconditional love and acceptance. And what happens as a byproduct of me approaching it in that way is that it transforms within my cells. It's like a coming home, and it's like reclaiming another piece of my wholeness. And just going back to Jack in the shower this morning, after he had moved through some of his sadness, I moved to the more right brain approach, and I said to him, you know, there is a solution to this problem, and do you know how to get through the portal into the space where the solution is? And he was like, no, how do I do that? I said, well, actually the sadness, like really like allowing the sadness into your heart, like that's what opens the door to the portal, and then the solution comes. And if we were to avoid the sadness, then how do we get through the portal? How do we expand into the solution and allow the solution to rise up and come to us? So yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about today, and that's how I see the role of resistance in our human experience. It's not something which I avoid, it's not something which I try and skirt around, it's not something which I see as like necessarily meaning that I'm on the wrong track or on the wrong path. It's something which is inviting me into like a portal, into a space where there are new insights, new ideas, new solutions, new awareness. And if I avoid that resistance and I avoid interacting with it in an intimate way and allowing it into my heart, like in terms of the sensation of it in my body, then I kind of block myself off from experiencing the expansion, the other side of that portal door. Yeah, so I think that's all I wanted to share today. I am going to be opening up registration for 1, maybe 2 group Zoom calls I think they'll be on Zoom, they might not be on Zoom, but some kind of group connection space online during the summer. And the purpose of this call is to come together and to start practicing and playing with this left brain, right brain approach and dance with emotional processing and the processing and integration of sensation in the body. This is really not I'm not dismissing the role of the stories and the mind and the very important role that the mind plays in our human experience. But this process is not about the mind, it's very much about the body And it's very much about getting the mind on board to choose to go into the body and to really open to a new level of sensation and experience, cellular experience in the body, through using this left brain, left and right hemisphere of the brain approach to interacting with the sensations in the body. So if that's something that is calling you, then I invite you to send me an email to helen@helenreed.org, just to register your interest, and then you will receive more information when it becomes available. Okay, so I will leave it there. I'm sending love, and I look forward to connecting again soon.